an effective weapon. Ah! Hurt.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a theory video! I haven't done one of these in a really long time, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, honestly, I was just kind of getting burnt out on doing theories and all of that. But the main thing was, I lost access to Premiere, which is what I used to edit those things. You'll notice that's why they were higher quality. But, now, I feel that I'm confident enough in my editing skills with SHAREfactory, and that there are enough things in SHAREfactory to do so, that I figured that for 50 subscribers, I'm bringing them back. Starting with this little theory on a little-known PlayStation exclusive you might have heard of called Infamous. Of course, I'm kidding about Infamous being obscure. If you were ever around on the PlayStation consoles during 2009, you'd be very familiar with Infamous and its protagonist Cole McGrath, who, for the longest time, had a bit of a rivalry with Prototype's Alex Mercer, because they were released a couple weeks apart and were both open-world superhero games. I quite like the rivalry, even though honestly I was on Prototype's side a little more. But I can't deny that Infamous was overall the better game, especially considering that it got 3 games and Prototype was shut down alongside its parent company Radical Entertainment in 2013. Sadness. But this is not about Prototype. This is about Infamous, and more specifically, the conduit abilities found within the game. Now, conduits are special sort of humans with a unique gene that can be only really activated in a few ways. One of them is by ray sphere radiation, which a special weapon called the ray sphere, when detonated, can absorb the bioelectric energy of people for many blocks around. In the original Infamous, 6 square blocks were completely destroyed by this thing. And as a result, it all got transferred to Cole and a few other conduits from around Empire City. And as a result, that is how you got people with superpowers in the Infamous universe. Most conduits have one special power, but Delson's unique in that his power is the ability to copy other powers and to use multiple different powers, usually at once. So I kind of have to postulate a very special question. It's a question that people have had since superpowers were ever a thing. Is it possible for us to be super, to have powers and special abilities? And are they probable, especially considering some of the abilities that are seen in the Infamous universe? Can I control and absorb smoke and then fire it back? Or can I, shock the bejesus out of people, or be a walking phone charger or something like that? Is it possible to have conduit-like abilities found in Infamous? And if so, how? Now, before all of the negative Nancys say, well, no, it's not possible, on to the next video, you're right, but that's not the point I was trying to make per se. I was trying to say if powers were plausible. Like, is there a way for some of these powers to be real? And the short answer is still a resounding no, most of the time. What I mean by that is that most of Infamous's abilities are definitely impossible. Fire controlling, the ability to create oil traps, Delson Rose smoke manipulation, that stuff is generally impossible. Nothing has ever been seen that allows any creature, much less a human, be able to turn into a smoke cloud and rush through things, keeping your same mass in a sort of cloud of smoke. But that doesn't totally exclude these abilities. As a matter of fact, the first ability ever seen in the Infamous universe is the most probable. Cole McGrath and his electrokinesis. Now, a conduit is able to generally absorb energy from their environment and then fire it back. That's how you get the smoke powers and the neon powers and stuff. But coal is able to absorb and release electricity, which is very probable, and I'll explain why. Now, really quick, electrokinesis very basically is just the ability to control and absorb electricity. It's like lightning bending, kind of, basically. And it's very strong, and Cole McGrath can use it to great effect, summoning lightning bolts from the sky, throwing rockets of electric energy, even absorbing bioelectric energy from other humans in order to fuel himself if you're a mean bastard and are able and want to use all of your powers for evil, mainly because of the red lightning. But I can't show you that. Not for copyright reasons. As you can see, I have Infamous Second Son gameplay over most of this stuff. But SHAREfactory has a very unusual keyframe interval limit that prevents me from using any of the Infamous gameplay that I wanted to use, like from the original 2 games. So as a result, I'm going to have to link you to walkthroughs in the description of Infamous 1 and Infamous 2. Mainly the good playthroughs, but you can find the evil playthroughs if you want. And that should show you all of the sort of powers that you can find in Infamous 1 and 2 that I'll be talking about. I'm sorry, normally I would do it on the video itself, but this isn't like Sony Vegas or Premiere Pro, so I can't really do that because of a weird key interval limit bullshit. But there's a reason why I say coal specifically is more likely as a power than any other power in Infamous, and why it's the most probable. Such a power already exists in nature. And while a few of these other powers kind of exist if you really stretch it, move for move, Cole McGrath's electric abilities are the most probable. And I'm going to explain. I am, of course, talking about creatures in nature that have electrical abilities. Now, some of you might immediately think the electric eel, and you'd be absolutely right in that being an example of electricity manipulation in nature. Electric eels, specifically, are able to use electricity to kind of sense their prey, because A, their vision is not good, and B, they live in the Amazon, where the water is very, very murky. So they use this as their primary sense to find prey. And it's believed that they can actually use it to make fish twitch in order to help them find them. It's like you telling your enemy to wave at you so you know where they are. And electric eels pack a punch. Their shocks can be as strong as 650 volts, which I know amps are the killing force in electricity, not necessarily volts. But 650 volts is almost 5 times stronger than your average electrical outlet, which is about 110, 120 volts, or within that range. There are even cases where people have used electric eels to power Christmas lights. It's absolutely insane. And yes, repeated shocks can bring down a man, but repeated shocks also tire and hurt electric eels in and of themselves. Electric eels are not immune to their own shocks. They actually hurt themselves in order to kill their own prey. It's not a fun way to use electricity, but it's very effective, clearly, because electric eels aren't the only animals capable of using electricity. Electric catfish, for example, are able to use this ability in a very, very similar way. You have electrical abilities, not really actually, more like electrical activity inside of your head. All of the synaptic activities going on inside of your head, every neuron that fires, is because of electrical impulses stimulated by your brain. I'm not joking. Why? And that is why extensive electrical exposure, like getting shocked for a long period of time, can cause nerve damage, because it's an overload to your nervous system when you get shocked to such a degree. And that is why electric eels don't really use their electrical abilities unless they have to. They don't just randomly shock stuff because it hurts them to do so. And Cole McGrath, while his abilities are extreme, can, in theory, utilize a similar ability to attack people. And it would also explain a lot of his limitations. Like, Cole can't use a gun because his electrical abilities cause the gunpowder to explode and once nearly blew his hand off because of the gun. He also can't get into cars because the electrical overload will cause them to explode. And in fact, he can use this ability in Infamous 2 to use cars as leaping platforms to jump off of to reach higher areas. It's a little bit nuts to think about. Now, one thing to keep in mind, of course, is that the way that Cole McGrath uses these abilities aren't exactly possible in nature. Nobody is firing electric bolts out of their hands in order to attack their prey. But it is a very potent ability nevertheless, and the most probable ability within the Infamous universe. But there are other abilities that, to a lesser extent, are probable, kind of. Take the invisibility ability that comes with Delsin Rowe's video power. There are creatures that can camouflage so well that you can't see them. Not chameleons, really. Chameleons do mainly use their color changing to signify mood, and secondarily use it for camouflage. What you might be thinking of is the cuttlefish or the octopus. They are capable of altering their color of their skin, the texture of their skin, and how their skin looks, so that they can blend in so well that they can even blend in with man-made environments like checkerboard floors and living room type environments like little artificial living rooms. It's super cool when you think about it like that, that invisibility is kind of possible. It's just you have to transform your skin. You have to be more like a cuttlefish. But of course, that doesn't mean you can create digital swords or summon hard light angels anytime soon. That's kind of impossible. Other abilities that are kind of probable but aren't really, also from Delsin Rowe, also from all of these conduits rather, is an advanced healing factor. All conduits have an advanced healing factor that is supercharged when absorbing whatever elements are around that they can absorb. When Cole McGrath absorbs electricity from the substation, for example, he rapidly becomes practically unkillable while he's draining from an electrical outlet. Lucy Quo, who controls ice, would probably be the same way if she was draining from an icy reservoir. And Delsin Rowe, because of his unique ability to drain from any resources from any conduits he touches, smoke, neon, concrete, that sort of thing, he can heal himself rapidly and recharge his batteries, as it were, from just about anything in the environment, so long as he's exposed to a conduit that has that ability in and of itself. And that also leads us to another ability that is actually relatively probable. Of course, not as probable as shocks or even camouflage, but still, relatively speaking. Now, I'm actually going to be talking about neon as a power. And what I mean by that is, well, obviously you're not going to be draining from a neon sign and being able to shoot people in the face with said neon energy. But something that was not shown, as far as I know, in the Infamous universe, but could be used in the real world. And before we continue, I'm just going to quickly get this out of the way. Not all neon signs use neon. They use different gases that are ionized through the modest electric current that pass through them. That causes the different colors. Hydrogen, for example, is red when ionized. So that's why you get the red open signs. There's actually hydrogen inside of those open signs, not necessarily neon. A true neon sign would be orange in color. But moving on. You might be familiar with fireflies and how they're able to glow in the dark. That is known as bioluminescence, which many creatures are capable of. Not just fireflies. You've got, for instance, anglerfish are very popular examples of this, as well as small species of copepod that live in the deep sea, which some of them actually have a unique ability to release a liquid that detonates after a short time that bioluminesces, or a fish that spits this bioluminescent liquid that coats their predators in this liquid, which makes them stand out like a sore thumb. That's a pretty cruel way to defend yourself when you think about it. But all of these are natural ways that are generally created by bioluminescent bacteria, little microorganisms that naturally glow, or through proteins like luciferin, which light up when stimulated in certain ways. This allows for bioluminescence to evolve multiple times throughout evolution and for multiple uses to have been had. Communication, defense, luring in your prey, those are just a few examples. Now, of course, we have to come to what is true. You cannot get conduit-based abilities. The ray sphere doesn't exist, and there is no real way for you to actually get electrical superpowers or smoke-based superpowers or anything like that. That just doesn't happen in the real world. But what can happen is mutations that occur while you're developing in the womb. Genetic mutations are everywhere in nature, and about 90 to 95% of these mutations are neutral. They don't do anything. That's because there's a lot of genes in your system that can get mutated, and most of the time your DNA does a pretty good job of fixing itself. So any mutations that do slip through are generally neutral. They're not doing anything to you. They're not beneficial. They're not harmful. They're just there. There are mutations, though, that are absolutely terrible, like sickle cell anemia. This is a fun little blood condition that causes you to get sickle-shaped blood cells, which is bad because if your red blood cells are like this, then your ability to diffuse oxygen throughout your body is hampered horribly, and that's bad. It is actually once believed that sickle cell anemia allowed you a sort of defense against malaria, but that is no longer believed to be true. So sickle cell anemia is bad, very bad. Among other things like increased chances of getting cancer just because you happen to have mom and dad who also had, both had grandparents who had some form of cancer in their lifetimes. Those are other examples. Only approximately 1 in 1,000 mutations are actually beneficial. For instance, your A, B, or O blood type can actually help you in certain circumstances. If you're an O blood type, I'm sorry to say, but cholera might kill you faster. Like, a lot faster. So that's bad for you. But, if you happen to be A, B, or either, you are less likely to die from cholera because of, it's believed, how cholera binds to blood cells to cause what cholera does, and how it can actually be seen as, oh, well, now, it's just not going to bind. I don't script these things, by the way, if it's become painfully clear. That's actually why, in areas around the Ganges River in China, for example, nobody there has an O blood type. Because while an O blood type can be donated to most people, I, for example, being O positive, I could donate my blood to anybody with a positive blood type. If I was O negative, everybody could get my blood. But I would die a lot faster from cholera than if I had an A blood type or AB blood type. And what that means is, and of course, that would mean that because the Ganges River is rife with cholera and has been for centuries, that's why people there have the A and AB blood type way more than the O blood type, as an example. Whereas the O blood type seems to do better against malaria, although we're not quite sure why that is. So long story short, you're not going to be getting conduit-like powers like you could find in Infamous. Super strength, an advanced healing factor, the ability to turn somebody's face into an electric battery. Rather, your mutations and how you were gifted through genetic evolution is what's responsible. I hope you enjoyed this theory video. This is the first one I've done in a long time. This was actually the winner of a little vote that I did in order to try and figure out, hey, how should I celebrate 50 subscribers? Thank you, by the way, for subscribing to my channel. If you haven't, please do so. I really want to spread these kinds of theories out, and trust me, there will be more in the future. Although, just a quick heads up, this is mainly a gameplay channel. I mainly do stuff like Arkham videos and fighting game videos, but I'm not afraid to kind of expand my horizons, as it were. And the dawn will come at 0. Maybe sometime soon. I hope you enjoy, and as always, don't forget to be awesome.